The xParticleGenerator object lets you convert particles to objects. We have a scene here where we have an emitter, generator, and several objects. Let's put the cube inside the generator. When I push play, the generator is creating the cubes and taking the particle color, which is set in the display options, and converting that onto the generated object. Go back to your generator. We have various options for how we look at hierarchies. So if I put these extra objects in here, and the default is sequentially, so it's going to emit particles in a sequence, which is based on the cube, platonic, cone, and sphere. We have randomly, which will randomly emit the particles. We have first child only, which will take the very first child of the hierarchy and make that the default object. Choose by index, which again is going to work on index 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on down the hierarchy. So if we set it to 1, it'll only emit the cube. If we set it to 4, it will emit the last object, which in this case is the sphere. Going down, we have a cloning type, so we have straight clone, instances, and render instances. Render instances will be quicker, however the object that is instance will be in your viewport, as you can see. So you need to either move that away from the scene so it's not rendered, or use one of the defaults. Draw modes is how you draw the scene, so geometry only, particles only, geometry and particles, and geometry render only. So we'll leave it at the default geometry only. Moving down, we have an animation option. That means if you have a keyframed object, it will use the animation when the particle is born. You have a scale for that and a variation. We have offsets as well, because you may have something like a flying object, a butterfly or a bird, and you want it to randomly take the animation so they don't all flap at the same time. This is where you use the random and variations. Scale is going to look at the particle scale set in the emitter. If we look at our emissions, we have scale and we have radius. If I look at the generator and set it from particle scale to particle radius, they're now going to take the settings we have here. So if I set that to 10 with a variation of 10 and emit the particles, you'll see you have variation built into the generator based on it being scale using radius. You can also set scale and do the variations yourself. Rotation is the same, particle rotation. If we go to our emitter, set particle rotation to random, and we will change our object to the cube. We now have rotation as well, because it's using particle rotation. And again, you can set these yourself. Object morphing is based on the morph modifier, and we'll look at that when we look at modifiers.